What is up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new DC News Roundup video, and as usual, there's quite a bit to talk about in today's video. And one of the stories, I was waiting a couple of days to see if James Gunn would reply, but he still hasn't addressed it, and you've probably already guessed it, and that is the news of the Arkham Asylum series having supposedly have been canned. We're going to go over some Batman 2 stuff to kick off this video as well, in addition to quite a few DCU things that I need to get into as always. So you guys know how it works here. Timestamps are in the video description, or hover over the video bar if you want to skip around the chapters of this video, but I do recommend sticking around so you're up to date on all of the news and all of my takes. So as I was making this video, I've been tagged by quite a few people in a new The Batman 2 rumor. Lots of you are saying, hey Boba, do you think this is true? So I thought I would address it. Now this is coming from none other than Grace Randolph, and you guys know the one that James Gunn had this tweet to say about once upon a time, which is kind of crazy to think about, like the co-head of DC Studios. But my take on Grace Randolph, with all due respect to her, at the same time, I don't think she's the most reliable person, but at the same time, never say never, right? She may have heard something, and let's entertain it. So what is it? Exclusive: the Batman Part 2 casting will be announced at San Diego Comic-Con, and we've got some other DCU stuff with regards to Comic-Con that we're going to speak about in a little bit. So what do I think of this? Could this be true? So I'm of a couple of minds about it. So my first reaction was, I don't know, that seems a little bit too soon maybe. But then again, I do want to play devil's advocate and entertain, and let's just say hypothetically, Grace nailed it on the head here, and we are actually going to learn something about a casting for the Batman Part 2 at Comic-Con. There is one or two ways this could actually be true. For example, what we heard most recently in our most significant update so far, which was a bit of good news from Andy Serkis himself, is that the Batman Part 2 is looking to film early next year, which was always the ideal case, right? They've got until October 2026, but the fact that he was informed that they would be filming early next year means that, well, it's not like Andy Serkis would be the only cast member being informed of that. Something must have gone out to cast members to be like, hey, make sure you don't book anything around this time, tell your agents, your managers, we are on track to be filming sometime early next year. So February, March, somewhere around then, I'm guessing. But that's still a really good sign, long story short, because this must mean that the script is, obviously cooking away to a point and where they really do expect it to be done fairly soon, right? But even with that being said, I was thinking, okay, so we might, if we're lucky, hear stuff about casting come around the fall of this year, sometime around the Penguin series, right? So obviously, when I look at what Grace Randolph is saying here, San Diego Comic-Con, which isn't that long away in the grand scheme of things, I was like, I don't know. But then I reminded myself, if there's one thing I do know about Matt Reeves, and you guys know me, I'm like a freaking C-3PO with memory banks. I've watched a lot of his interviews, and he wrote the role of Bruce Wayne and Batman during the script writing stage for Robert Pattinson in mind. And believe it or not, he also wrote the role of the Riddler with none other than Paul Dano in mind. Now, at the same time, you could argue, oh, that doesn't mean they're going to get the actors, but I'm telling you, it is documented that Matt Reeves wrote those two characters with certain actors in mind. And we also know that well before casting even began, Robert Pattinson had meetings with Dylan Clark, the producer, on the Batman, just feeling it out a little bit. Granted that, the deals weren't inked or nothing was signed, but you probably see where I'm going with this here. I suppose one could argue for the Batman Part 2, which, as we know, the script has been in the process of being written for quite a long time now, that, since what we can assume is that we're going to be getting another couple of characters being cast in this movie. I know we've got quite a few of the cast members, so they don't have to worry too much about finding a Batman or a Catwoman or, Jim Gordon or an Alfred. But I think we're all expecting a new Rogues Gallery villain, even if, he's poised up there alongside Colin Farrell's Oswald Cobblepot, maybe taking a larger role, given that he'll be Kingpin of the criminal underworld after his Penguin series is complete. So, yes, Matt Reeves could have written the new Rogues Gallery role with a certain actor in mind, and maybe, just maybe, there has been similar talks behind closed doors. This is just speculation from me. I do want to stress that. And I'm just trying to really imagine, okay, so if we are going to hear some casting at Comic-Con this year, San Diego Comic-Con. How could that happen? Well, this could maybe be the way. Even if the script isn't done, you could argue a similar thing where Robert Pattinson met Dylan Clark and they had meetings, and Matt Reeves wrote these characters with certain actors in mind. A similar thing could have happened with new characters in Part 2. And as I always say as well, no news with this previously doesn't mean that no newsworthy things haven't been happening behind the scenes. What it really means is that, it just hasn't been announced yet, so of course we don't know about it, technically. So that's all I've got to say about Grace Randolph's rumor about how some Part 2 castings will be announced at San Diego Comic-Con. In my gut, I am feeling like it's a bit too soon, but then again, I keep saying it in a minute, any week or month now, we should be hearing like really official stuff from like Deadline and the Hollywood Reporter saying, right, script's been handed in, pre-production is starting. They'll be doing that for like 5-6 months, going into the beginning of 2025, and then filming will begin. So let me know any and all thoughts that you guys have down in the comments below with regards to this. And also just a little quick update with regards to the Penguin. This was a rumored date already, but it appears that the Hollywood Reporter have confirmed that the Penguin will start streaming on Max September 8th. Actually, scratch that. I don't know why the Hollywood Reporter said that, because now it's coming out that the Penguin series is premiering on September 19th, which is even better for me. Either way, September 8th or September 19th. I guess it's September 19th, but there's the release date for the Penguin. Now up next, everyone, arguably the biggest thing that people have been talking about recently, and I did do a live stream about this, but I have waited a couple of days to see if James Gunn would reply to threads, because you just know, including myself, many people have mentioned him over on threads saying, hey, can you debunk this? Hey, can you confirm if it's true? And normally James Gunn, when the Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, Variety are talking about something, that does get his attention, and he does say something about it. Now, if he doesn't say something about it, that's where something may kind of seem a little bit shady, in a sense that actually could there be some truth to this. Now, I do want to say, as of when recording this video, he hasn't replied. And knowing my luck, he might reply by the time I upload it, so just bear that in mind with regards to if what I'm about to say could be redundant or not. But I'm going to kind of give you both sides of this story as well. And that is that the Arkham Asylum TV series is not moving forward at Max, a Variety exclusive. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, okay, everyone's just reading the headlines, because when you actually read the body of the article, it seemed clear to me that this was more about the Matt Reeves Batverse, the Batman universe version / iteration of the Arkham Asylum series. Because no matter what, it is 110% true that at its very conceptual level, the Arkham Asylum show was set in the Batverse. But this is where it gets a bit complicated with what James Gunn said back in December. But if you need further proof of that, in an interview, Matt Reeves said that the GCPD thing, that story has kind of evolved. We've actually now moved more into the realm of exactly what would happen in the world of Arkham as it relates coming off of our movie. And some of it's like, as it relates coming off of our movie, he means the Batman. So a series about Arkham as it relates coming off of our movie. No questions need to be really further asked there. It was a Batverse series. We heard little updates along the way in terms of how Antonio Campos would be serving as a showrunner and writer. But, you know, long story short here, we didn't really hear too much other than December of 2023 when Gunn went to Threads, just to give you a little bit of a recap here, and we found out that it's a DCU Arkham series now. And I even asked him saying, why is it that it changed from a Batman universe spin-off to a DCU project? And James Gunn replied to me saying it wasn't changed. So my mind was blown there, being like, what do you mean it wasn't changed? Like, I've got the receipts of Matt Reeves saying like it was a, you know, as it relates to coming off of our movie. But this is where he further clarifies to this user who asks, so this has always been planned to be in the DCU from the start? And Gunn says, yes, it was one of the first pitches we bought when Peter and I came on board. And the next thing he says is something that still baffles me to this day. I don't know the permutations it went through before that time. So that's kind of him admitting that, okay, so maybe it did have some previous permutations or versions or iterations of what this show could be. So, for example, the Batverse version, before it got pitched to me by Matt Reeves about it being a DCU project. So I guess he's saying there, I don't know what permutations it went through before that time, is a bit of an acknowledgement of how there could have been previous permutations, but bottom line, Gunn is saying it was ultimately one of the first pitches that him and Peter bought when they came on board as co-heads of DC Studios, and to his knowledge, it's always just been a DCU Arkham series because that's the way it was pitched to him. The reason why I always found that a bit strange of an answer is because it's like, okay, so Matt Reeves pitched it to you and Peter Safran, and you're telling me in that meeting of him talking to you about, hey, I'm going to pitch you an Arkham series. We want it in the DCU. I'll help produce it. Me being Matt Reeves here. And you really didn't even talk about how, like, it was once going to be a thing in my Batverse. You didn't say, like, oh, we were going to try and do, like, an Arkham spinoff of my, Pattinson Batman universe, but for one reason or another, we couldn't really work it out. But hey, James, since I've got you here in person or over a Zoom call, I want to pitch it as a DCU project instead for your DCU Batman. You really are telling me, James, like, with all due respect, that you didn't know of any permutations it went through before that time. I still don't understand that one, but let's just take him at his word here. What we have to work with here is that to James Gunn, it's always been a DCU pitch. And also, interestingly, one of the first that they bought when him and Peter came on board. They came on board as co-heads of DC Studios, the leaders of the new DCU, as of the end of October of 2022. So sometime between October of 2022 and early 2023, this is when Matt Reeves would have pitched it to James Gunn. What we also know about that time period in early 2023 is that Matt Reeves and James Gunn had meetings where they would talk everything about their Batman plans. They even called it, we're doing a bit of air traffic control so their ideas don't clash into each other with what they want to do. So I assume it was around these meetings that we know happened for a fact is when the DCU Arkham series was pitched, and apparently Matt Reeves never mentioned that they actually did have a concept of that show being in his Batverse. But either way, okay, James Gunn, you only have ever known it as a DCU series, and it's completely separate from that of whatever the concept was for the Batverse Arkham show. So, it couldn't be more obvious the stance that Gunn was taking on it. So when this article came out, I know that was a bit of a long, kind of winded, backstory there, but it's important when you get into these articles as to why I felt the way I did about, is this really being kind of perceived as correct by these major trades? Because they're saying that the planned Arkham Asylum TV series is no longer moving forward at Max, Variety has learned. And what they get into here is mainly the Batverse version of it. So I was just like, why are you reporting on a story that's kind of old news? It was kind of obvious that the Batverse version of it was no longer, it was canned and not happening anymore since it was now a DCU pitch. So I was just thinking maybe Variety got like a source who just said something to them like, oh yeah, that's not happening anymore. And I just thought, like, innocently here, they're not so in the loop, so they thought it was like a news story. It's like, hey, like, this has been cancelled, we've heard it from a source, but was the writer of the article really aware that this wasn't actually brand new news? So let's carry on. So as Variety exclusively reported in October of 2022, Antonio Campos had come on board to serve as writer and showrunner of the series, which was originally meant to be set within the world of Matt Reeves' The Batman. But according to an individual with knowledge of the situation, Campos' version will not proceed. And this is the thing that muddies it even more. They're saying it is still possible, though, that a new project set within the infamous Gotham City Asylum could be developed in the future, the individual noted. Which is kind of like, well, that's probably the DCU version, which, by the way, I don't think that's even being remotely developed at a hardcore pace right now. It would be like so early on. As Gunn says, they don't have a script. It probably isn't the priority. They've got a big team over there, of course, so multiple members of the DC Studios team are working on different projects. It's not like one at a time. I understand that, but still, I don't think it's going to be something that is coming for quite a while. So I think that the individual source who noted that something could still be developed in the future is referring to the actual existing and still potentially alive DCU Arkham series that we heard James Gunn talking about over on Threads back in December. But this article here kind of muddies things in my mind. It kind of puts a bit of a smokescreen up and combines these two ideas of the Arkham show from the Batverse version and now the DCU version into one thing that has been canned. And I'm just, being transparent and honest here. I just don't know if that's the case. So they say, thus ends, at least for now, the show's complicated path, when they go on to say here, it was originally announced in July 2020 with a series commitment, but at that time, it was meant to be the Gotham PD show. And then they go on to mention here in the article what I've already been through, how Reeves then said in an interview in 2022 that the Gotham PD show is now more evolved into an Arkham show, as it relates coming off of their movie, The Batman. And then they give the latest announcement, and this is the thing, again, that I think muddies it, that after James Gunn and Peter Safran took over DC Studios, they say here, in a series of social media posts in December of 2023, the ones that I showed you, Gunn said that the show was still in development and clarified that it was meant to be set within the new DCU rather than the same world as The Batman. That technically isn't true. And what I mean to nitpick here is that the writer of this article says that Gunn said that the show was still in development. He didn't actually say that, because that implies that the Arkham show that Matt Reeves was doing for the Batverse version was still, in James Gunn's mind, a connected thing that evolved to a DCU thing. Now, in the real world, I guess it kind of did, but what we need to look at is James Gunn's responses, if you're still with me here, and how I said to him, myself, why is it that it changed from a Batman universe spin-off to a DCU project? And he said, it wasn't changed. It wasn't changed because to James Gunn, this has only ever been one thing for him. So therefore, technically, with this Variety article, James Gunn didn't say that the show was still in development in December of 2023. He actually said, no, I don't know what permutations it went through before that time, so screw the Batverse version. No, it wasn't changed. This is a DCU Arkham series. That's a thing that's still... So do you see where I'm going with my theory here? Is this all being kind of misconstrued into one thing that the article writer is claiming evolved from the Batverse to the DCU, and thus, because their source said that the Batverse version isn't happening anymore, that in fact the whole thing isn't happening anymore? Because that is what I'm suspecting is the case. And then we had the writer of the article on Twitter say, to clarify, and I don't think this really clarifies anything with all due respect to them. So to clarify, James Gunn said months ago that the Arkham Asylum show would be a part of the DCU rather than Reeves' world of the Batman. But there is now no Arkham show in development at DC. They could always revisit later with a new writer, but the original project that Max committed to in 2020 is dead. I agree. That original project, and he says that was the Gotham PD show that Reeves said kind of evolved into an Arkham show. Yeah, that one's dead. Anything developed now would be wholly new and separate from that. Yes, it would, as per what James Gunn said. So this didn't clarify anything. It just complicates it even more. I know I'm sounding frustrated, but it is frustrating because you then look at the Hollywood Reporter, and every other place from Deadline to the Hollywood Reporter is basically not clarifying anything. They're just re-reporting that, hey, the Antonio Campos original Gotham PD evolved into Batverse Arkham Asylum show is cancelled. And they kind of just dabble in how, oh yeah, but it's also a James Gunn thing, so maybe the whole thing's cancelled. Although we are hearing that it might not be totally dead. What is it? What is it? I don't know. And I was thinking I was very confident. So the only thing that has shaken my confidence in how I think maybe this story's been a bit misunderstood or misconstrued because of the, how it was once a Batverse thing, but then it's a DCU thing where James Gunn stated that it never even changed. The fact is, he hasn't replied. And we know here on the channel that James Gunn, I know he's a very busy man right now shooting Superman, a very, very, very busy man. But if there's one thing I do know about him, with the amount of people who would have been asking him about this over on Threads, he would have seen it in his mentions. And that tells me there is a likelihood that he's avoiding addressing this. And if that is true, then that doesn't bode well. Maybe this could be about the DCU Arkham series as well. But I trust by now, through rambling about this, why it isn't so clear-cut to me. Why I don't necessarily think it is also pertaining to the DCU Arkham version, in where James Gunn said it didn't change from a Batverse version to a DCU Arkham thing, because it was only ever one thing for him from the get-go, and that's a DCU project. But he hasn't acknowledged it. Why? Again, when James Gunn shuts down rumors from little Twitter fan page outlets, if you will, and he most definitely addresses major trade stories unless there is a certain reason as to why he isn't, is this one of those reasons that's a bit shady? Because why wouldn't he just be like, I don't know why, I can imagine Gunn at the time when I was thinking he was going to reply to this, he might say something like, I don't know what's going on out there, but what I can tell you is that Matt Reeves is still producing a DCU Arkham project. He doesn't have to go into too much more detail than that, other than just saying, yes, Matt Reeves is still producing the DCU Arkham project. He hasn't said anything. And to be honest, each major trade that covers this just doesn't really say anything either. Like Deadline says, the Arkham series was set to have joined that new DCU that so far includes Reeves' The Batman 2 and the Penguin. Like, what do you mean? They're not even in the freaking DC. Like, I don't even know if they really know what they're talking about, to be honest. I mean, and Deadline even says here, and we hear that the project is not necessarily dead. Like, I feel like that's just them claiming that we've heard that, but really they're re-reporting a Variety story where they also say that something could happen in the future with it, which I just think in actuality is the DCU Arkham thing that is still happening. But I will say one more time, the fact that Gunn hasn't addressed it in days and days and days, and they haven't been filming Superman over the weekend, is a bit sussy to me. I can't tell you that the DCU Arkham series is dead or isn't dead at this point. I was pretty confident at the beginning, but now it's wavering a little bit. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. Now, up next, guys, we have some news coming out of a scooper, I believe, from Big Screen Leaks saying that Creature Commandos may very well have a showcase at San Diego Comic-Con. Now, I know that many of you probably weren't expecting too much of a DC Studios presence at Comic-Con because James Gunn himself said that he's still going to be filming, right? And that is true, but I've always thought, well, you know, that doesn't mean that they wouldn't have a message displayed or Peter Safran go there himself, or just maybe the team behind Creature Commandos having something to offer there. So I do think that this could be a likelihood. I have had people ask me for a long time in live streams or Q&As that could I imagine it at Comic-Con, and I thought, well, since it's coming out in December, maybe they might want to save it for a bit later, but, you know, they could easily show something, and that would be pretty awesome. If you're not going to do too much at Comic-Con, given that the DCU hasn't got so much to show right now, even though you could argue some Superman stuff, well, Creature Commandos is going to be quite far along in the process, given that it's releasing in just a few months after Comic-Con in December. So I think we could get a trailer. That would be really, really awesome. I've seen some people say, well, this must mean we might be getting some Superman stuff. Don't hold your breath, but if DC Studios are going to do this Creature Commandos feature, or maybe feature a trailer, or to those who attend San Diego Comic-Con, you can see the first 15 minutes of the first episode or something like that. That would be really cool. It would be really sweet to get some more promo stills or something like that for Superman. So, for example, we got the suit reveal from James Gunn with the battle-damaged version. It'd be pretty sick if we got, like, official suit reveals for Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl, even though we've seen them on set, to see them in a bit more of a professional way that they approve of. Maybe there's a little, you know, slight chance of that happening. But again, I would say don't hold your breath. But yeah, maybe we could get something out of Creature Commandos. Now, in other DC rumors / leaks here, this pertains to Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and Lobo. Now, Lobo is a character that we're all expecting to be in the DCU. Ever since the blatant ass teasers from James Gunn and Jason Momoa himself coming out of a meeting with James Gunn and David Zaslav, that he could be Lobo, right? It's just something that, you know, we haven't heard about for a while, but it doesn't mean it's not happening. It's just that it could be, you know, a little bit of a ways into the DCU, so they don't want to say, hey, yeah, I'm playing Lobo. They're waiting for things to blow over, like Aquaman at a time, but we're slowly getting a bit more rumors now. So Lobo apparently might make his debut in Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, from Daniel RPK here, saying that there's a role in Supergirl that has them interested in Jason Momoa. If I had to guess, I'd say it sounds a lot like Lobo. Now, a lot of fans out there are thinking that maybe, just maybe, without giving too many spoilers away from the actual comic book storyline, I do recommend reading the comic for yourself, but that what if Lobo replaces the role of that of Krem of the Yellow Hills, of which is a major character in the story with regards to Ruthie's story and, well, her backstory and the very quest that she goes on with Supergirl. That could be the case. You know, I guess they could make it that Lobo did what he did in that story, but at the same time, you could argue, what if, you know, Lobo, being a bounty hunter himself, is just maybe aware of Krem and they go to him for information? I don't know. That would just be a bit more of a cameo, I suppose. Maybe a backdoor to his own further involvement in the DCU or his own project down the line. I don't know so much about my suggestion there, but yeah, they could be, you know, implementing Lobo in a much bigger way, as per what some people were thinking, with him actually replacing Krem, or, as Croc says here on Twitter, that maybe Krem hires Lobo instead. As I always say, adaptations don't copy and paste, so these are kind of subtle changes that would be kind of a believable thing when you're adapting something into live action, and you want to bring in someone like Lobo, who could be, you know, quite a threat in this story. So I would love to know your thoughts on that. Could this be our first time seeing Lobo introduced in Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow? Which, don't forget, we've got Superman next summer, but the summer after that, we now know, is Millie Alcock's Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. So I wouldn't be, like, closed off to a change like this. And again, this is all speculation right now based off of a rumor. But if you're familiar with the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow storyline, how would you feel if Lobo replaced Krem? Or would you prefer something like Krem hiring Lobo to just do a job, if you know what I mean, albeit quite a diabolical job? But ladies and gentlemen, I have been rambling for long enough in this video, so let me know your thoughts, your feelings, any theories you have on everything that we discussed in today's video. It's also David Corenswet's birthday, so shout out to David Corenswet. It's kind of crazy that I guess this time next year, it will be the same week as when Superman is releasing. So he's going to have quite the birthday week in 2025. Obviously, Superman has resumed filming right now, so, make sure you subscribe to the channel for any major updates that we could get out of the next several days of filming. I do have a couple of videos planned that I wanted to get up last week, but you may have noticed I only uploaded twice last week because I got super busy, but they are very much so involved in the DCU Superman realm of things, so look forward to those. But that is everything, so would really appreciate a like. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the DCU in the next video. Goodbye.